and consistency builds legends. Not talent, not luck, not motivation that comes and goes, consistency. Let me ask you something right now, and how many times have you started strong and then disappeared? How many goals have you abandoned, not because they were impossible, but because they required patience? And I'm not here to hype you up for one day. I'm here to tell you the truth that actually changes lives. Legends are not created in moments of excitement, and they are built in silence, in repetition, in showing up when nobody is watching. Everyone wants success, but very few people want the process, and people admire the results but ignore the routine. They see the victory but not the years of discipline behind it, and consistency is doing the boring work even when you don't feel like it. It's waking up on the days you're tired. It's training when progress feels invisible, and it's staying focused when distractions are screaming for your attention. That's where separation happens. That's where average people quit and legends are born. And let me be clear, consistency is not about being perfect. It's about being committed. You will fail. You will mess up. You will have days when you fall off track, but consistency is getting back up without drama, without excuses, without waiting for the right mood. You don't need motivation every day. You need discipline, and you need structure. You need a standard you refuse to drop, no matter how you feel. And most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. Small actions, done daily, compound into massive results. And one workout doesn't change your body. One study session doesn't change your future. One effort doesn't change your life, but repeated effort does. Consistent effort does. And that's how confidence is built. That's how skill is mastered. That's how ordinary people become extraordinary. Understand this, your consistency is a message, and it tells the world how serious you are. It tells your mind who's in control. When you show up every day, you rewire your identity. You stop asking, can I do this? And you start saying, this is who I am. That shift changes everything. When consistency becomes your identity, results become inevitable. And so if you want to build something legendary, stop looking for shortcuts. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20, and focus on today's work. Do it again tomorrow. Then do it again the next day. Stack the days. Protect your routine. Respect the process. Because in the end, consistency doesn't just build success, it builds character, confidence, and legacy. Talent is impressive, but it is unreliable, and it shines brightly at the beginning and then slowly fades when effort is required. The world is full of gifted people who never reached their potential, and not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked consistency. Raw talent can give you a head start, but it cannot carry you to the finish line. And the truth most people don't want to hear is this: talent without consistency is wasted potential. And wasted potential is one of the most tragic things a human being can carry. Think about it for a moment. And how many times have you seen someone who was naturally good at something quit the moment it got hard? They relied on talent to save them, and when talent wasn't enough, and they walked away. Consistency, on the other hand, doesn't rely on how you feel or how gifted you are. It relies on commitment, and it relies on showing up even when there is no excitement, no praise, and no immediate reward. That is why consistency always outperforms talent in the long run. And here's a hook you need to understand deeply: talent makes you noticeable. Consistency makes you unstoppable. Anyone can look good once, and anyone can perform when conditions are perfect. But legends are not built on perfect days. They are built on ordinary days repeated again and again. And consistency turns average effort into extraordinary results. It creates momentum, and momentum is more powerful than motivation will ever be. And another hard truth is that talent often creates arrogance. When something comes easily, people stop respecting the process. They skip the basics, they avoid discipline, and they expect success to arrive automatically. Consistent people don't have that luxury. They respect the grind because they know results must be earned, and they master the fundamentals. They improve step by step. While talented people wait for inspiration, consistent people are already working. And consistency also builds mental strength. When you show up every day, especially on days you don't want to, you train your mind to obey your goals instead of your emotions. And this is where real power is developed. Anyone can act when they feel confident. Very few can act when they feel tired, discouraged, or doubtful. And consistency teaches you to move forward regardless of your internal state. That ability separates high performers from everyone else. Let this sink in, and consistency is the great equalizer. You don't need to be the smartest, the fastest, or the most gifted. You just need to stay in the game longer than everyone else, and over time, consistent effort compounds. Skills sharpen, confidence grows, and results stack up quietly until one day people call it overnight success. They never see the years of repetition behind it. And there is also something deeply transformative about consistency. It builds identity. Every time you show up, you cast a vote for the person you are becoming, and you stop hoping to be disciplined and start becoming disciplined. You stop wishing for success and start acting like someone who expects it. And talent may give you belief at the start, but consistency gives you proof over time. Proof that you can rely on yourself. Here's another hook most people ignore, and consistency is a form of self-respect. It's a promise you make to yourself and keep daily. When you break that promise repeatedly, confidence erodes. When you honor it, and confidence becomes unshakable. That inner trust is more valuable than any natural ability. Talent can impress others, but consistency builds trust with yourself. And in the end, the people who win are not the most gifted, but the most committed. Talent might make the journey look easier at first, but consistency ensures you never stop moving forward. And in a world where most people quit early, simply refusing to stop is often the greatest advantage of all. And motivation is powerful, but it is temporary. It comes in waves, rises with emotion, and disappears the moment discomfort shows up. And if your progress depends on how motivated you feel, you will always be inconsistent. That is the trap most people fall into. They wait for the right mood, the right energy, and the right moment. But success does not wait. Discipline steps in when motivation walks out, and that is why discipline always wins in the long run. And here is the first hard hook you need to hear: motivation is a feeling, discipline is a decision. Feelings change daily, sometimes hourly. Decisions, once made and honored, and create structure. Discipline is not loud or exciting. It does not give you a rush. It gives you control, and it tells you what to do before your emotions start negotiating with you. The people who move ahead in life are not more motivated than others, and they are more disciplined in how they act regardless of how they feel. Motivation loves comfort. Discipline respects standards. When motivation is high, action feels easy. But when the work becomes repetitive, slow, or uncomfortable, motivation looks for an exit. Discipline does the opposite. Discipline shows up when it is boring, and discipline works when no one is watching. Discipline trains when progress is invisible. That is why discipline builds results that last, and while motivation builds results that fade. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it is punishment or pressure. In reality, discipline is freedom. And when you are disciplined, you no longer argue with yourself every day. You don't waste mental energy deciding whether or not to act. The decision has already been made, and this creates clarity, focus, and momentum. Here's a powerful hook: the more disciplined you become, the less effort life requires from you. Structure reduces stress, and routine removes chaos. Discipline also builds self-trust. Every time you act despite resistance, you prove to yourself that you are in control. That confidence is earned and not imagined. Motivation can make you feel confident for a moment, but discipline gives you evidence, and evidence that you can rely on yourself even when conditions are not ideal. And once you trust yourself, hesitation disappears. Action becomes automatic. And another truth people avoid is that discipline feels hardest at the beginning. That is where most people quit. They mistake discomfort for failure. But discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. What feels heavy today becomes normal tomorrow, and what feels impossible now becomes routine later. Motivation cannot give you that progression. Only discipline can. Here's a hook that separates leaders from followers, and discipline is choosing long-term respect over short-term pleasure. Motivation wants comfort now. Discipline wants results later, and every meaningful achievement in life is the result of delayed gratification. And discipline trains you to say no to what feels good now so you can say yes to what matters most later. Discipline also protects you from excuses, and motivation listens to excuses. Discipline ignores them. You can have a bad day and still be disciplined. You can feel tired and still follow your standard. And discipline does not require perfection, it requires consistency. That consistency compounds into mastery, confidence, and authority over your own life. And The most dangerous belief you can have is thinking you will start once you feel motivated. That day rarely comes. The people who succeed start before they feel ready, and they move first, and motivation follows action, not the other way around. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. Discipline is what starts the chain, and, in a world addicted to comfort and instant gratification, discipline is a rare advantage. It is quiet, uncomfortable, and often misunderstood, but it is also the most reliable path to growth. When motivation fades, discipline remains, and the ones who master discipline never need to wait for inspiration to move forward. Small actions look harmless, almost invisible. That is why most people ignore them, and they underestimate their power because they don't produce instant results. But this is one of the greatest misunderstandings about success. Life is not changed by massive and dramatic moments. It is shaped by tiny decisions repeated daily. Here's the hook most people miss: small actions don't feel powerful in the moment, but they are unstoppable over time. People love intensity. They love doing something big once and calling it progress. They work hard for a few days, feel productive, and then disappear. Small actions require patience, and patience is uncomfortable. And yet small actions done consistently create a force that cannot be matched by occasional bursts of effort. And one step forward every day will always beat 10 steps taken once a month. Think about how growth actually works. Skills are built through repetition, and confidence is built through repeated exposure. Discipline is built through daily follow-through. Nothing meaningful arrives all at once. It arrives gradually, quietly, and almost unnoticed. That's why people quit too early. They don't see results fast enough, so they assume nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, momentum is building. Here's a powerful hook: consistency turns time into your greatest weapon. When you take small actions daily, time starts working for you instead of against you. Effort compounds, knowledge stacks, strength multiplies. What begins as a simple habit becomes a lifestyle, and what starts as a small action becomes a defining advantage. This is how ordinary people outperform more talented individuals who rely on occasional effort, and small actions also remove pressure. Big goals can feel overwhelming. They paralyze people before they even begin. But small actions feel manageable, and anyone can do a little more today. Anyone can improve by 1%. When you focus on small actions, you eliminate fear and build momentum, and progress becomes sustainable instead of exhausting. Another truth is that small actions shape identity. Every time you follow through on a small commitment and you reinforce trust in yourself, you prove that you are someone who keeps promises, even minor ones. That self-trust compounds just like effort. Over time, you stop questioning whether you can do hard things because you've already proven it to yourself repeatedly. Here's a hook that changes perspective, and success is not about doing extraordinary things. It's about doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. That excellence comes from repetition, not intensity, and small actions refine skill. They sharpen focus. They create precision. Mastery is built in the details that most people overlook, and small actions also protect you from burnout. When you rely on extreme effort, you eventually crash. When you rely on consistent small actions, progress becomes stable and sustainable. You don't need motivation spikes. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need to show up and do what you can that day. And over time, that adds up to more than you ever expected. The most dangerous mistake people make is quitting, because results are not immediate, and they confuse slow progress with no progress. But growth is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. The work you do today may not show tomorrow, but it will show eventually. And when it does, it will look sudden to everyone else. Here's another hook to remember: small actions are easy to dismiss, but impossible to stop once they compound. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence fuels consistency. Consistency magnifies results, and that cycle continues as long as you stay committed. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is rarely intelligence or luck, and it is the willingness to respect small actions and trust the process. When you commit to daily improvement, even at the smallest level, you create massive change without realizing it. And by the time others notice, you are already far ahead. Excuses are the most comfortable lies people tell themselves, and they sound reasonable, logical, even responsible. But excuses have one purpose: to protect comfort at the cost of progress. And the moment you allow excuses to enter your routine, your standards begin to fall. And here's the hard hook most people avoid, and the level of your life will never rise above the level of your standards. Once standards drop, results follow them down, and high performers don't live excuse-free lives because life is easy. They live excuse-free lives because their standards are non-negotiable. Everyone gets tired, and everyone faces pressure. Everyone deals with bad days. The difference is not circumstances, it's response. Average people look for reasons to slow down, and disciplined people look for ways to stay aligned with their standards, even when conditions are against them. And excuses are dangerous because they don't destroy progress all at once. They erode it slowly. One excuse becomes permission. Permission becomes habit, and habit becomes identity. And before you realize it, what you once refused to tolerate has become your new normal. That's why breaking standards even once matters, and not because of the action itself, but because of the message it sends to your mind about what is acceptable. Here's a powerful hook: standards are not about perfection, and they are about direction. You don't need flawless days, but you do need firm rules. When standards are clear, decisions become simple. You no longer debate whether to act, and you act because that is who you have decided to be. When standards are weak, every decision becomes emotional, and emotions are unreliable leaders. And people often confuse self-compassion with self-indulgence. Real self-respect is holding yourself accountable even when it's uncomfortable. And lowering standards to feel better in the moment always costs you later. High standards may feel demanding now, but they save you from regret in the future. And discipline today is cheaper than disappointment tomorrow. Another truth most people ignore is that standards create consistency, not motivation. Motivation comes and goes, and standards stay. When you commit to a standard, you remove negotiation. You stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start asking, "And what does my standard require?" That shift is everything. It moves you from reaction to control. Here's a hook that separates leaders from followers, and your standards teach others how to treat you, but more importantly, they teach you how to treat yourself. Every time you keep your word to yourself, confidence grows, and every time you break it, self-belief weakens. Confidence is not built through affirmations, it's built through follow-through, and standards also protect you from excuses disguised as logic. "I'll start tomorrow. I deserve a break. It won't matter if I skip today." These thoughts sound harmless, but they are the first cracks in discipline. High standards don't eliminate rest, they eliminate inconsistency. Rest is planned. Quitting is not. Adjustment is allowed, and excuses are not. There will be days when effort feels heavy and progress feels slow. That is exactly when standards matter most. Anyone can perform when energy is high, and anyone can stay committed when results are visible. Very few people can maintain standards when it feels pointless. But that is where separation happens, and that is where character is revealed. Here's another hard hook: you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your standards. Goals are hopes, and standards are systems. Goals inspire you. Standards control you in the best way. They remove chaos and replace it with order. And an order is the foundation of long-term success. When you decide that excuses are no longer acceptable and standards are no longer flexible, and something powerful happens internally, you stop negotiating with weakness. You stop justifying inconsistency. You stop lowering the bar to match your mood. And that internal shift doesn't just change results, it changes identity. And once identity changes, behavior follows automatically. And identity is not something you discover overnight, it is something you build through repeated behavior. Every action you take is a vote for the person you are becoming. And most people wait for confidence, discipline, or clarity to appear before they act, but that is backwards. Action comes first, repetition follows. Identity is formed last. And here's a hook most people never realize: you don't become consistent because of who you are. You become who you are because of what you repeatedly do. And people often talk about wanting to feel like a disciplined person, a focused person, a successful person. But feelings don't create identity, patterns do. And the mind learns through evidence. When you show up again and again, even in small ways, your brain starts to accept a new truth: this is who I am. And that belief becomes powerful because it is earned, not imagined. Identity built through repetition is stable. It doesn't collapse when motivation disappears. And here's a strong hook to remember: your habits are louder than your goals. You can say you want success, growth, or confidence, but your daily actions reveal what you truly believe about yourself. Repetition is how belief is trained. Every time you follow through, you reinforce self-trust, and every time you quit, you reinforce doubt. Over time, those reinforcements shape how you see yourself. Repetition also removes resistance. In the beginning, and everything feels forced. Discipline feels unnatural. Focus feels uncomfortable. But repetition turns effort into instinct. What once required willpower becomes automatic, and that's when identity locks in. You stop forcing yourself to act and start acting because it feels normal. That normal is not luck, it is trained, and most people try to change their identity with words. They use affirmations, promises, and motivation. But nothing sticks because behavior doesn't change, and identity doesn't respond to words, it responds to proof. Repetition provides that proof. When you keep showing up, even on days when you don't feel strong, and you send a powerful message to your mind, I can rely on myself. That message changes how you think, decide, and act. Here's another hook that matters deeply, and confidence is a side effect of kept promises. When you repeatedly do what you said you would do, even in small ways, confidence grows quietly, and not the loud kind that needs validation, but the calm kind that doesn't shake under pressure. That confidence becomes part of your identity, and you no longer need to convince yourself you know. Repetition also reshapes your self-image under stress. Anyone can act disciplined when life is easy, but repetition under pressure is what forges identity. When you continue to show up during fatigue, doubt, or slow progress, you prove to yourself that you are resilient, and that resilience becomes automatic. You stop panicking when things get hard because hardship is familiar territory. And here's a hook that separates high-level performers from the rest: identity is strongest when it is boring. Flashy motivation fades. Emotional highs crash, but repetition is steady. It doesn't care about applause. It doesn't need excitement. It just shows up. And that quiet reliability is what builds leaders, professionals, and legends. Repetition also creates alignment. Your actions, thoughts, and self-image begin to match, and there is no internal conflict between who you want to be and how you live. That alignment reduces anxiety and increases focus. You are no longer pretending or hoping, and you are simply being. The most powerful identities in the world were not chosen, they were earned through daily repetition. The disciplined person is not special, and the focused person is not lucky. They simply repeated the right actions long enough for those actions to become inseparable from who they are. And once behavior becomes identity, consistency is no longer a struggle, it is natural. Lonely work is the price of extraordinary results. And most people avoid it because it offers no applause, no validation, and no immediate reward. It is quiet, repetitive, and often uncomfortable. But here is the hook: most people never accept the work that no one sees is the work that changes everything. When there is no audience, no pressure to impress, and no recognition waiting, only those who are truly committed continue. In the beginning, everyone is excited. Support is loud. Encouragement is easy. But as time passes and progress slows, the crowd disappears. That is where lonely work begins: early mornings when no one is awake, late nights when no one cares, and days when effort feels invisible. This is where most people stop, not because they are incapable, but because they mistake silence for failure. And here's a hard hook to remember: lack of attention does not mean lack of progress. Growth is often hidden before it becomes obvious, and roots grow underground before anything shows above the surface. The same rule applies to personal development. The hours you put in alone, repeating the basics, and refining skills, and staying disciplined, are building a foundation strong enough to carry success later. Lonely work forces honesty. Without an audience, and there is no one to perform for, you are faced with your real work ethic, your real discipline, and your real excuses. That confrontation is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. This is where character is forged. When no one is watching, you learn whether you are driven by purpose or by praise. Another powerful hook is this: and applause is a terrible teacher. It rewards results without always respecting process. Lonely work does the opposite. It teaches patience, humility, and consistency, and it removes ego from the equation. When you work without recognition, you stop chasing validation and start chasing mastery. That shift changes how deeply you commit. And lonely work also builds mental resilience. When progress is slow and encouragement is absent, your mind looks for reasons to quit, Staying consistent during that phase strengthens your ability to endure discomfort. Over time, you stop needing external motivation. You become internally driven, and that internal drive is what sustains long-term success when external support fades. Most people want visible success without invisible effort, and they want recognition without repetition. But the reality is simple: the spotlight only comes after the work is done. Here's the hook that separates winners from quitters, and if you cannot work in silence, you are not ready to be heard. The ability to stay focused without attention is a competitive advantage in a distracted world, and lonely work also sharpens focus. Without noise, comparison, or distraction, you can see your weaknesses clearly. You improve faster because you are not performing and you are practicing. Practice in isolation allows you to refine details others ignore. Those details create excellence, and there will be moments when lonely work feels pointless. When results lag behind effort, when doubt whispers that nothing is changing. Those moments are not signs to stop, and they are tests of commitment. Passing those tests builds an unshakable belief in yourself. Not confidence based on hype, but confidence based on endurance. And here's another hook worth remembering: the strongest habits are built when no one is watching. Once those habits are solid, performance becomes natural. And when the opportunity finally arrives, it feels effortless to others, but they never saw the years of silent preparation. Lonely work is not punishment, and it is preparation. It strips away distractions, ego, and shortcuts. It forces you to rely on discipline instead of motivation. And while most people run from the quiet, and those who embrace it create outcomes so powerful that the noise eventually comes to them. Remember this as you walk away today, and legends aren't remembered for what they started, they're remembered for what they finished. Stay consistent when it's hard. Stay consistent when it's slow, and stay consistent when nobody is clapping. Because consistency builds legends, and the next one could be you.